The sleek, silver ship, christened the Seeker, pierced the veil of Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing an eerie green as it navigated the turbulent currents of air. Inside, Captain Xylar, a being of pure energy housed in a shimmering humanoid form, watched the approaching planet through a panoramic window, his digital eyes gleaming with a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. "It's beautiful, Captain," chirped his second-in-command, a young, eager scout named Cygnus, her voice a series of high-pitched clicks and whistles. "Like a giant, blue marble." "Indeed, Cygnus," Xylar replied, his voice a low, resonating hum. "But beauty can be deceptive. We are here for the truth, not for the aesthetics." They were on a mission, a journey that had taken millennia to prepare for. Their mission, to find out why this planet, a mere blip in the cosmic tapestry, was labeled the Planet of Nightmares in their ancient texts. For centuries, whispered tales had passed through their interstellar civilization about a planet where darkness and terror reigned supreme. Now, they were finally here, ready to unravel the mystery. The landing was smooth, the ship settling onto a flat expanse of green grass, the air thick with the scent of pine needles. As Xylar and Cygnus stepped out, they were greeted by an unsettling silence. The sun, a blazing ball of fire, hung low in the sky, casting long, distorted shadows of their alien forms across the terrain. "Where are the creatures?" Cygnus whispered, her antennae twitching nervously. "The ones the legends speak of." Xylar shook his head, his energy form shimmering. "Perhaps they are not here, or perhaps they are camouflaged, waiting for an opportune moment. We must be vigilant." Their first encounter was unsettling. A small, furry creature with large, vacant eyes darted across their path, its movements jerky and unpredictable. It emitted a series of high-pitched squeaks, its gaze fixed on them with an unsettling intensity. A squirrel," Cygnus muttered, her voice barely a whisper. "It's just a squirrel." Xylar, however, felt a prickle of unease. He had witnessed countless strange creatures in his travels, but this one felt different, its eyes a bottomless abyss reflecting a primal fear. Days turned into weeks, and their exploration yielded more unsettling encounters. They found abandoned structures, crumbling remnants of a civilization that seemed to have vanished overnight, leaving behind only eerie whispers of its existence. The landscapes were beautiful, but also unnervingly still, the silence broken only by the chirping of unseen birds and the rustling of leaves in the wind. Then, they found it a sprawling city, its buildings towering like metal skeletons against the fading sunlight. But the city was empty, devoid of life. A sense of profound sadness and loss hung in the air, a heavy cloak of despair that weighed down their very being. "They are gone," Cygnus whispered, her voice filled with a sense of foreboding. "Where did they go? What happened here?" Xylar, his usually vibrant energy form now dimmed, walked slowly through the deserted streets, his gaze sweeping across the desolate cityscape. He could feel the whispers of history, the echoes of a civilization that had met a terrible end. He could almost hear the screams, the cries of despair, as if the city itself was mourning the loss of its people. It was then that he saw it. A small, weathered sign, barely visible on a crumbling wall, its letters chipped and faded. It read, "Welcome to Nightvale." The words, seemingly innocuous, sent a shiver down Xylar's spine. A chill wind swept across the city, bringing with it a faint but unmistakable scent of blood and decay. Suddenly, a high-pitched scream pierced the silence, echoing through the empty streets. Cygnus, her eyes wide with terror, pointed towards a nearby building. Emerging from the shadows, a group of grotesque figures, their bodies twisted and contorted, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light, stalked towards them. "They are here," Xylar whispered, his voice heavy with fear. "The nightmares are real." The figures approached, their movements swift and silent, their eyes fixed on the two aliens. Cygnus drew her energy weapon, its tip glowing a brilliant red, but Xylar raised his hand, stopping her. "We cannot fight them," he said, his voice filled with a strange resignation. "They are not of this world. They are the nightmares themselves." With a shuddering gasp, the Xylothian ship, a shimmering orb of living metal, hovered silently over a desolate stretch of the Australian outback. Inside, Commander Kale stared at the holographic projection of a human cityscape. "They call this New York," he muttered, his voice low and guttural, tinged with a hint of disgust. "It's a monument to chaos and ugliness." "It's an anomaly, Commander," said Xylar, Kale's second-in-command, a sleek, silver humanoid with piercing blue eyes. "The majority of the human settlements are far more harmonious, but even they seem to have an inherent tendency towards conflict and destruction." Kale shook his head, his long, bony fingers tapping nervously on the control panel. "They call this planet Earth, the planet of nightmares. We've seen the evidence of their wars, their environmental destruction, their insatiable hunger for power and control. But they're not all bad, Commander," Xylar insisted. "The Dreamers, as they call themselves, are trying to create a better world. They believe in peace, in cooperation. They see our arrival as an opportunity for unity." Kale snorted. "The Dreamers are fools. They think they can tame the human beast. They haven't seen the true face of humanity, the face that devours its own for the smallest scrap of power." Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently. The lights flickered, and the holographic projection faltered. "What was that?" Kale demanded, his voice tight with alarm. "We're being attacked, Commander," Xylar reported, his face grim. "It seems the Guardians have decided to take matters into their own hands." Kale's eyes narrowed. The Guardians, a radical human faction that believed in complete isolation from the Xylothians, were considered a fringe group. But their actions had implications beyond their own fanaticism. "The Guardians?" Kale's voice was tinged with disbelief. "They're a minor faction, a sideshow. They can't possibly be responsible for this attack." "There's a ship on our tail, Commander," Xylar confirmed, "armed with high-powered lasers. They're attempting to disable our shields." As the Guardian ship closed in, Kale made a decision. "We have no choice but to fight," he growled. "We must show them that the Xylothians are not to be trifled with." The battle raged, the Xylothian ship, a shimmering beacon against the night sky, its defenses holding firm against the relentless onslaught of the Guardians. But the Guardians were relentless, and their technology proved surprisingly effective. In the chaos of the battle, a new twist emerged. A small, human vessel, emblazoned with the symbol of the Dreamers, entered the fray, firing on both the Xylothians and the Guardians. It was a desperate gambit, a last-ditch effort to prevent the conflict from escalating further. "The Dreamers?" Kale's eyes widened in disbelief. "What are they doing?" Xylar, his eyes fixed on the human vessel, spoke quietly. "They're trying to end the fight, Commander. They're trying to show us that humanity is not simply a planet of nightmares, but a complex tapestry of good and evil, hope and despair. They're trying to show us that there's still a chance for peace, for understanding." As the human vessel wove through the chaos, it sent a message to both the Xylothians and the Guardians, a plea for peace, a plea for understanding. Kale, his heart heavy, watched the human vessel struggle against the tide of violence. He had come to Earth expecting to witness the downfall of a species consumed by its own darkness. But he was beginning to see something else, a glimmer of hope, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. He realized that he had to make a choice, to continue the fight, or to listen to the voice of peace. The decision weighed heavily on him, the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. He knew that his choice would shape the future of both the Xylothians and the humans. The spaceship, a sleek, silver disk, hovered silently above the desolate wasteland that was once the Sahara Desert. Captain Xylar, his four eyes narrowed in a combination of fear and fascination, stared at the screen displaying the latest readings. "It's true," he muttered, his voice barely a whisper. "This planet, this Earth, is truly a nightmare." His first officer, the stoic and pragmatic Kailata, placed a hand on his shoulder, her 3 fingers long and slender. "Captain, we know why they call it that. But why are we still here? We were sent to observe, not to risk our lives." Xylar sighed, his chest constricted by a knot of emotions. He had been sent to Earth on a mission of exploration, a mission that had rapidly become something far more complex. The initial scans had revealed nothing but barren landscapes and broken structures. It was only when they sent a scout drone to the ruins of what was once New York City that the true horror of this planet was revealed. The drone's camera had captured a glimpse of something horrifying, a creature, tall and emaciated, with skin like peeling bark and eyes that glowed a malevolent red. It moved with a horrifying grace, its long, skeletal fingers clutching a weapon that emitted a strange, pulsating light. It was a sight that had sent shivers down the spines of the most seasoned crew members. "We have to understand," Xylar said, his voice firming. "This is our responsibility. We need to know what happened to this civilization. Why did they create such monsters?" Xylar's expression remained impassive. "Captain, we are not equipped for this. We are explorers, not soldiers. Our mission was to study, not to face this unknown." Suddenly, an alarm blared, the shrill sound slicing through the tense silence. "We have an incoming transmission," announced the comms officer, his voice trembling. It's from the creatures." Xylar felt a cold dread creep up his spine. "Get it on the main screen." A distorted image flickered on the screen, a grotesque, skeletal face filling the monitor. The creature's eyes burned with an unholy intensity, its thin lips moving in a silent, rhythmic motion. "We are the guardians of this planet now," the creature rasped, its voice a low, guttural growl. "We are the new order, and you are intruders. Leave." A wave of panic washed over the crew. The threat was clear. This planet was no longer a dead world, but a breeding ground for a new, terrifying species. Xylar knew then that their mission had changed. They were not just observers anymore. They were targets. "Prepare for immediate departure," Xylar barked, his voice tight with suppressed fear. "And send a distress signal to the fleet. We need reinforcements. Now." As the ship hurtled back into the dark expanse of space, Xylar glanced back at the Earth, now shrinking in the distance. The planet, once a beacon of hope, was now a symbol of fear, a terrifying reminder of the potential darkness that lurked within the galaxy. But something nagged at him. The creature's message, its claim to be the new order. What did that mean? What was this new order trying to achieve? And most importantly, could they be stopped before they spread their horrifying reign beyond Earth? The questions lingered in his mind, a chilling echo of the nightmares he had witnessed on the planet of nightmares. He knew their journey was far from over. The fight for the galaxy had just begun. The alien ship, the HFY, had finally reached Earth, its sleek, metallic hull reflecting the shimmering, silver-blue glow of the planet. The crew, a band of seasoned Xylarians, were both fascinated and terrified. Their sensors had picked up an incredible amount of energy fluctuations, unusual radio signals, and most importantly, a consistent, unnerving hum resonating from the planet's surface. It was the hum of nightmares, the source of Earth's ominous nickname, the Planet of Nightmares. Captain Xylar, a Xylarian with piercing red eyes and a perpetually furrowed brow, surveyed the data with a grim expression. "This planet, it's a chaotic mess," she muttered, her voice tinged with a rare note of doubt. "The energy readings are off the charts, and the radio frequencies, they're like a symphony of screams." "Could it be a form of advanced technology?" suggested Xylar, a young, eager crew member with bright green skin and a head full of swirling, multicolored patterns. He was the ship's communications specialist, but his optimism was often misplaced. Zara shook her head. "No, Xylar, it's something else, something much more primal." The HFY landed on a desolate, rocky beach, the alien sky a tapestry of swirling purple and orange. Zara, along with her first officer, the stoic and pragmatic Kai, stepped out onto the alien world, their biosuits humming faintly. They were met by a scene of utter desolation, a landscape ravaged by storms, with gnarled, black trees twisted into grotesque shapes. Suddenly, a low growl emanated from the darkness, followed by the snap of a twig. Zara's hand instinctively went to her plasma pistol, while Kai held up a bioscanner, its glowing light the surrounding darkness. From the shadows emerged a creature, unlike anything they had ever seen. Its body was a twisted mass of bone and sinew. Its eyes glowed with a malevolent red light, and its mouth, a gaping maw of sharp teeth, seemed to writhe with a sinister life of its own. That's impossible," Kai whispered, his usually calm voice cracking with fear. "Our sensors, they didn't pick up any signs of life." Zara's intuition was screaming at her. "This is no ordinary creature, Kai. It's a manifestation of the nightmares." The creature let out a guttural roar, the sound echoing through the desolate landscape. The ground seemed to tremble beneath them, and the air crackled with a strange energy, a terrifying energy that pulsed in sync with the creature's roar. Just then, a new alarm blared from the ship. Xylar's panicked voice crackled through the calm. "Captain, we're getting a new signal. It's our nightmare hum, but amplified 1,000 times." Zara felt a chill run down her spine. She knew what it meant. The nightmares were not just confined to Earth, they were feeding off the planet's energy, its chaos, its fear. And now they were reaching out, reaching for them. "Kai, get back to the ship," Zara barked, her voice betraying her growing panic. "I'll handle this thing." But as she turned to face the creature, she felt a tremor in her own heart, a primal fear she had never experienced before. It was the fear of the unknown, the fear of the void, the fear of the nightmares themselves. The creature lunged, its claws outstretched, its red eyes burning into her. Zara felt a surge of adrenaline as she raised her plasma pistol. This was no ordinary mission, no simple exploration. This was a fight for survival, a fight against the very essence of nightmares, and she knew, with a sickening certainty, that she was fighting a losing battle. The alien vessel, a sleek, bioluminescent craft, hovered silently above the desolate expanse of the Sahara Desert. Inside, Xylar, the captain, stared at the data feed. It was a mess, a chaotic symphony of contradicting signals, each more unsettling than the last. "They're calling it a planet of nightmares, Captain," said Zara, her voice laced with a tremor. "But the readings, they don't add up. Their technology is primitive, their government's unstable. It doesn't make sense." Xylar, a stoic Xylonian with skin the color of twilight, rubbed his brow, the only visible sign of his growing frustration. "We've seen the data, the fear, the despair, the violence, all broadcasting from the planet's surface. We need to understand why." He turned to their biologist, a vibrant, energetic being named Kai. "Kai, have you established any connection with their life forms?" Kai, her antennae twitching, shook her head. "They're difficult. Their biology is complex, and their communication patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. It's like their thoughts are fragmented, riddled with contradictions." "Contradictions?" Zara echoed, her eyes widening. "Like what?" Kai hesitated, then pulled up a holographic image of a human, its face contorted in a grotesque display of rage. "They're simultaneously fearful and aggressive. They crave peace, yet engage in constant conflict. They cherish life, yet inflict untold suffering upon each other. It's bizarre." "The planet seems to be in a constant state of dissonance," Xylar added, his voice grim. "Maybe that's why they call it a planet of nightmares. Maybe it's a reflection of their own internal turmoil." Suddenly, the vessel lurched violently, alarms blaring. "Incoming transmission," Zara announced, her voice strained. On the screen, a blurry image flickered, revealing a human, his face etched with fear. He spoke in a broken, frantic voice, his words distorted by the interference. "They're coming, the shadows, they're everywhere, help us." The image dissolved, leaving behind only a chilling silence. Xylar felt a cold shiver run down his spine. The fear in the human's voice was palpable, echoing the terror they had witnessed in their scans. "It's not just their own internal conflict," Xylar declared, his voice ringing with conviction. "Something else is happening, something more profound and more dangerous." Zara, her instincts screaming, looked at him, her eyes wide. What could it be? Xylar turned his gaze back to the holographic image of Earth, the planet of nightmares. "We need to find out, Zara, before it's too late for them, and for us. The vessel, responding to a new sense of urgency, began to descend, its bioluminescent hull cutting through the night like a celestial predator. The planet below, bathed in a sickly yellow light, seemed to wait, its secrets shrouded in shadows. As the alien craft approached, the true nature of Earth's nightmares was about to be revealed, and with it, a terrifying truth that threatened the very fabric of their existence. The Xylar, with their shimmering chitinous skin and eyes that pulsed with bioluminescence, had been studying Earth for centuries. Their observations were a meticulous chronicle of human civilization, a bizarre and fascinating tapestry of beauty and horror. They have labeled our planet the planet of nightmares, not for our wars or pollution, but for the inexplicable, illogical, and often terrifying things we created. They had witnessed the rise and fall of empires, the birth of ideas, and the death of millions. They had catalogued our art, our music, our scientific achievements, and our utter disregard for logic. They had observed our fear, our greed, our capacity for both unspeakable kindness and unimaginable cruelty. They had seen it all, and their initial fascination had morphed into a chilling, detached curiosity. Their leader, Xylar, was a creature of pure logic, her mind a complex network of algorithms and calculations. She believed that understanding the nightmare would unlock the secrets of its evolution, and perhaps even offer a glimpse into the future of their own species. But Xylar wasn't alone in her pursuit. Xylo, her closest confidante, an artist at heart, couldn't bring himself to share Xylar's cold, analytical detachment. He saw beauty in the chaos, an inherent poetry in our flaws, even in the dark corners of our existence. He saw not just a planet of nightmares, but a tapestry woven from threads of light and shadow, a symphony of contradictions. Their differences led to a tense stalemate. Xylar, driven by logic, wanted to study and dissect the nightmare to understand its workings, perhaps even to control it. Xylar, however, saw a need to understand the emotions behind the chaos, to connect with the humanity within the nightmare. Then, their peaceful observation was disrupted. An unexpected signal, a faint pulse of energy emanating from Earth, alerted them. It was a message, a plea for help. A lone human, a scientist named Dr. Amelia West, had accidentally activated an ancient artifact, a relic of a forgotten civilization that had built a bridge between dimensions. The bridge was now unstable, a conduit for nightmares themselves to seep into our reality. Xylar saw it as a scientific anomaly, a unique opportunity to observe the manifestation of the nightmare. Xylar, however, saw it as a cry for help, a chance to intervene, to prevent further chaos. Their disagreement, however, was no longer a theoretical debate. The bridge was unstable, and the nightmares were spilling into Earth. The Xylar were forced to act, but their differences now meant they had to choose. Would they study the nightmares, or would they confront them? This was the true challenge for the Xylar. Would they become the saviors of a species they deemed illogical, or would they remain detached observers of a world they could never fully understand? The planet of nightmares was calling for help, and the Xylar were faced with a decision that would forever change their perspective. The alien, Xylo, stared at the holographic projections of Earth, the images flickering with an unsettling energy. He shivered, despite the regulated temperature of the observation deck. It wasn't just the visuals, the screaming, the destruction, the constant, almost tangible, fear radiating from the planet, but the raw emotion behind them. It was unlike anything he'd ever experienced, even from the most volatile species in their sector. "I don't understand," he muttered, his voice a low hum. "It is as we predicted, Xylo," said the elder, Ilada, her voice smooth and calm. "This species, humans, are inherently driven by primal instincts. Their history is a tapestry of violence and conquest, fueled by a relentless hunger for power and control." "But why the nightmares?" Xylo insisted. "It's not just their history. It's something more. This fear is pervasive, woven into the very fabric of their existence." "Perhaps," Ilara said, her gaze turning contemplative, "their history is not the sole source of their nightmares. Perhaps their planet itself is haunted by a dark energy, a residue of ancient events." A jolt of awareness shot through Xylo. The anomalies, the readings from the planet's core, we dismiss them as natural fluctuations. But what if? A new voice cut through their conversation. What if the planet is alive? They turned to see a young scientist, Yara, her eyes alight with excitement. The readings we dismissed, they matched the patterns of a sentient being, albeit one with a vast, complex consciousness. Xylar felt a wave of nausea. A sentient planet? It's possible, Yara said. The planet's energy signatures are erratic, volatile. It's like it's suffering, and its suffering is reflected in the nightmares of its inhabitants. The nightmares are a symptom? Xylar wondered aloud, his head spinning. The nightmares are a connection, Yara explained, her voice filled with a strange urgency. Humans are deeply attuned to the planet's emotional state. The fear, the pain, it's all seeping into them, shaping their psyche. Alara, her usually stoic expression now filled with concern, spoke. If this is true, then the planet is not just a source of nightmares, but a prisoner within them. The revelation hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. The planet, once considered a prime target for resource exploitation, now appeared as a tragic entity, trapped in its own suffering, its inhabitants mirroring its pain. But before they could delve deeper, a new signal flooded their monitors. An alert blared, the red light flashing ominously. A powerful surge of energy had erupted from Earth's core, unlike anything they'd ever seen. The three aliens stared at the screen, a mixture of fear and fascination washing over them. The nightmare planet was waking up, and they didn't know what that meant. Captain Xylar stared at the Earth, a swirling blue and green marble against the backdrop of a crimson sunset. He'd seen countless planets in his lifetime, but none had held him captive like this one. The readings were alarming: extreme temperature fluctuations, volatile weather patterns, and an almost absurdly complex ecosystem teeming with life forms of all sizes and shapes. They call this place the planet of nightmares, he muttered, his voice thick with disbelief. What nightmares could possibly exist here? His second-in-command, Lieutenant Xylar, a young woman with eyes as sharp as her wit, replied, "We'll find out soon enough, Captain." Their ship, the Celestial Dawn, was a marvel of technology, sleek and powerful, but even its sophisticated sensors struggled to decipher the chaos of Earth. Xylar felt a prickle of apprehension. He'd been in command for 15 years, seen countless battles and explorations, but this mission felt different. There was an unsettling energy here, something primal and unforgiving. As they descended through the atmosphere, a storm erupted, a tempestuous dance of wind and lightning that battered the ship. The landing was rough, the ground shaking beneath their feet. Emerging from the wreckage, Xylar and Xylar found themselves in a lush jungle, the air thick with humidity and the scent of unknown flora. "This is just the beginning," Xylar said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. They ventured deeper, their suits equipped with sophisticated translators and environmental monitors. They encountered creatures unlike anything they'd ever seen: shimmering insects with iridescent wings, towering trees that pulsed with an inner light, and fearsome predators with teeth like daggers. But it was the humans they found most unsettling. The humans they encountered were not the aggressive, warring race their data had suggested. They were a complex mix of curiosity and fear, suspicion and wonder. They were resourceful, inventive, and fiercely protective of their planet. But they were also prone to conflict, self-destruction, and a deep-seated fear of the unknown. "The nightmares aren't just out there," Xylar whispered, his gaze fixed on a group of humans arguing amongst themselves, their voices laced with anger and despair. "They're in here, too." The twist came when they discovered a hidden message, a holographic recording left by an earlier expedition team. It was a warning, a chilling account of an encounter with a mysterious force, a primeval terror that lurked beneath the surface of the Earth. The team had called it the Eater of Worlds, a creature of pure energy that consumed everything in its path. The recording ended abruptly, the image flickering before fading to black. "We need to get out of here," Xylar said, her voice trembling. "This isn't just a planet, it's a trap." Xylar hesitated. He couldn't leave the humans, not without understanding their plight. But facing the Eater of Worlds, facing the nightmares that lay hidden beneath the surface, was a different story altogether. He looked back at the churning storm, the wind howling like a beast, and he knew this was only the beginning. The planet of nightmares was about to unleash its true terror, and the fate of Earth, and perhaps even his own, hung in the balance. The alien ship, a sleek silver disk with intricate glyphs etched across its hull, hovered silently above the desolate wasteland that was once the Mojave Desert. Inside, Xylar, the lead xenobiologist, stared at the data stream flooding their central console. "It's unbelievable," she whispered, her six-fingered hand trembling as she adjusted the holographic projections. The Earth, once a vibrant blue marble, was now a ravaged husk. Its oceans were poisoned, its continents scarred, its atmosphere choked with pollutants. "What is it, Xylar?" asked Chiron, the ship's captain, his brow furrowed with concern. He was a tall, lean being with scales shimmering like amethyst under the harsh desert light filtering through the viewport. "The readings, they confirm it," Xylar said, her voice heavy with dread. "This planet, this Earth, was once home to a sentient species called humans, but they destroyed themselves." Chiron's expression hardened. "Self-destruction, a common theme among primitive races. We've observed it countless times. But this, Chiron," Xylar's voice cracked, "this is different. The scale of their destruction, it defies logic." On the holographic screen, images of decaying cities, rusted machinery, and skeletal remains of colossal, metal structures flickered. Beneath the surface, the Earth throbbed with a silent, ominous energy. "Look at this," Xylar pointed to a strange, pulsating energy signature. "It's coming from deep within the planet's core. It's alive." Chiron's scales shimmered brighter. "Alive? Impossible. A planet can't be alive." "This one is," Xylar insisted, "and it's reacting to the humans' destruction. It's angry." The ship shuddered as a tremor shook the ground below. The console flared with a burst of static, and a distorted, guttural growl echoed through the vessel. Chiron's face went pale. It's responding to our presence," he stammered. Xylar's eyes widened. "It's trying to communicate." The alien language, a guttural cacophony of clicks and whistles, filled the ship. Chiron struggled to translate. It says intruders, and you will pay." The ship shuddered again, this time more violently. The holographic projections flickered, then vanished completely. The ship was plunged into darkness. "We need to leave, now," Chiron yelled, his voice laced with urgency. But it was too late. A tremor, this time cataclysmic, ripped through the ground. The ship, no longer able to withstand the force, was sucked into a gaping chasm, disappearing beneath the surface. As the alien ship plummeted into the depths of the Earth, Xylar realized with a sickening jolt that they were not alone in this wasteland. The planet of nightmares wasn't just a graveyard of a species that destroyed itself, but a living, vengeful entity, and they were trapped within its grasp. The true nightmare had only just begun. The Xylar ships, sleek and silver, hovered silently above the desolate ruins of what was once New York City. Captain Xylar, his iridescent scales shimmering in the eerie green light of his visor, surveyed the scene. "It's worse than we imagined," he muttered, his voice a low, rumbling hiss. "The biosignatures are gone, completely gone." Next to him, First Officer Xyl, a young Xylar with a vibrant blue pattern on his scales, squinted at the cityscape. "How could an entire civilization just disappear?" "That's what we're here to find out," Xylar replied, his voice grave. "The reports from our probes are disturbing. They spoke of nightmares, of a terror so profound it drove them mad. But why?" Their mission, to study the Earth's enigmatic history, had taken a sinister turn. They'd expected to find remnants of a vibrant civilization, perhaps a forgotten language or technology. Instead, they found an eerily silent world, a canvas of shattered glass and twisted metal, devoid of life. "Captain," Xyl said, his voice hesitant, "our sensors are picking up something strange, a signal, faint but persistent." Xylar's visor flickered with a new reading. From the underground, he whispered, but there's no known life forms below the surface. The signal, a series of irregular pulses, emanated from deep beneath the ruined city. The Xylar, known for their advanced technology, were baffled. They had no knowledge of any subterranean civilization on Earth. As they descended deeper, a feeling of unease gripped them. The air grew thick and oppressive, the silence unnerving. The signal, now stronger, pulsed like a heartbeat, and Xylar couldn't shake the feeling that it was a warning, not a beacon. Then, from the shadows, they saw it, a vast cavern, deep by an unnatural, sickly green glow. In the center, a colossal machine hummed, radiating the strange signal. But it wasn't the machine that shocked them. It was the figure standing before it, tall and gaunt, clad in a tattered leather cloak. Its eyes, glowing with an unnatural intensity, fixed on them. "Welcome," a voice, cold and raspy, echoed through the cavern. "To the planet of nightmares." The Xylar stared, their mandibles clicking in a silent, terrified chorus. For they had found not the end of Earth's civilization, but a new beginning, a beginning that promised to be far more terrifying than anything they could have imagined. The twist. The signal wasn't from another civilization. It was a signal of survival, a desperate cry for help from the last remaining humans on Earth. But they had evolved, twisted by the nightmares that had driven them mad, into something far more sinister, and they weren't alone. The machines, once designed for good, now served their warped purpose. The humans had become their own nightmares, a dark reflection of the fear that had consumed them. The alien vessel, a shimmering orb of bioluminescent flesh, hovered silently over the ruins of New York City. Inside, the Xylar, a race of sentient, bioluminescent fungi, debated the wisdom of their mission. "It's too chaotic," hissed Kale, his slender, bioluminescent filaments pulsating with agitation. "They're driven by primal urges, ruled by fear and violence." "This is the culmination of a millennia-long study," countered Eldrin, his filaments glowing a calm, steady green. "Their self-destructive nature is exactly what we need to understand." Their leader, Ayla, a towering figure with filaments that glowed a vibrant violet, stepped forward. "We came here seeking a solution, not a problem. This planet of nightmares, as you call it, holds the answer to our own existential crisis. We must find it." Ayla's words resonated with the Xylar. Their own world, a bioluminescent paradise, was dying. Their symbiotic relationship with their planet's ecosystem had been disrupted, leading to a slow, painful decline. Earth, despite its darkness, held the key to their survival. The Xylar had detected a faint, persistent hum emanating from the planet, a signal unlike any they had encountered. They believed it was the key to understanding the planet's destructive nature, and, perhaps, a way to save their own. As they descended towards the ruined city, they were met by a horrifying sight. A group of creatures, gaunt and feral, fought over the scraps of a mangled car. Their eyes, wild and hungry, gleamed in the fading light. "The scavengers," whispered Eldrin. "They are the most primitive of Earth's sentient life forms. They are driven by instinct." But as they observed the scavengers, a new twist emerged. Ayla noticed something peculiar. The scavengers, despite their primitive nature, seemed to be drawn to the hum, their movements guided by an unseen force. "That hum, it seems to be affecting them," she said, her voice low and urgent. "It's not just a signal, it's a force. It's pulling them towards something." Suddenly, a tremor shook the ground. From the depths of the ruined city, a colossal, metallic creature emerged, its surface glowing with an eerie, pulsating light. It was an ancient robot, a relic of Earth's past, activated by the same hum that drew the scavengers. "This is the source," Ayla declared. "The hum is emanating from this machine." But the robot was not friendly. It whirred to life, its robotic limbs groaning, and moved to attack the scavengers. The Xylar watched in horror as the scavengers were crushed, their cries lost in the din of the robot's awakening. It's killing them," Kale gasped. "The hum, it's not a solution, it's a weapon." Ayla's violet filaments pulsed with urgency. "The hum, it's not random, it's a message, it's a warning." She looked at the Xylar, their faces dim by the eerie glow of the robot. "We must understand this message. It holds the key to our survival." The Xylar's journey to the planet of nightmares had just begun. Their quest for knowledge had taken a dangerous turn, and the fate of both their worlds now hung in the balance. The alien vessel, the Whisper, hovered silently over the vast, polluted urban sprawl of New Delhi. Inside, Commander Xylar watched the sprawling city, his three eyes flickering with a mixture of curiosity and revulsion. His first officer, Xylar, a slender, feline-like creature with iridescent scales, leaned closer to the panoramic viewscreen. "It's almost beautiful in its own way," she murmured, her voice a melodious chirp. "But the air, it's thick with a suffocating, metallic stench." Xylar sighed. "The reports didn't lie. This planet is a monument to its own self-destruction." Their mission was simple: observe, collect data, and report back to the Galactic Council. But the sheer brutality and self-inflicted suffering of humanity had left even Xylar, a seasoned explorer who had witnessed galactic horrors, feeling a profound sense of unease. "Why do they call it the planet of nightmares?" Xylar asked, her voice tinged with genuine concern. "We've seen species that have destroyed themselves, but none with such deliberate cruelty." Xylar pondered this, his three eyes staring at a news feed playing on a side screen. It showed a frantic woman pleading for help as a group of armed men stormed her home, their faces twisted with malice. "Because they create their own nightmares," Xylar replied, his voice deep and gravelly. "They are masters of manipulating their own fears, their own prejudices. They build empires of lies and hate, then turn on each other in the most brutal ways imaginable." Just then, their sensors detected a new signal, a distress call originating from deep within the urban jungle. The signal was garbled, but they could make out the word "help" repeated frantically. "Commander," Xylar's voice was urgent. "We need to respond. They are calling for assistance." Xylar hesitated. They were supposed to be neutral observers. But the desperate plea, the sense of raw terror in the signal, resonated deeply with him. "All right," he finally said, a flicker of determination in his eyes. "We investigate, but we'll be extremely cautious. We are not to intervene in their affairs." As they descended towards the source of the signal, they found themselves in a dilapidated district, rife with poverty and desperation. The distress signal was coming from a crumbling apartment building, its windows boarded up, graffiti etched on its faded walls. The Whisper landed in a nearby alleyway, its shimmering hull blending with the shadows. Xylar and Xylar, their bodies cloaked in human-like disguises, cautiously approached the building. As they moved closer, a horrifying scene unfolded before their eyes. A group of armed men, their faces masked and their eyes filled with a cold, calculating rage, were breaking into the building, their weapons flashing menacingly in the dim light. The distress call suddenly cut off. Xylar grabbed Xylar's arm, her voice trembling. "They're going to kill them." Xylar stared at the unfolding scene, his own heart pounding in his chest. He was supposed to be neutral, an observer, but he couldn't stand idly by. He knew the risks, but something within him, a flicker of humanity, perhaps, compelled him to act. He whispered a command to the Whisper, and the ship silently glided into action. A strange hum filled the air, accompanied by a blinding flash of light. As the blinding light faded, Xylar and Xylar found themselves in the middle of a shimmering energy field. The attackers were frozen in place, their movements halted. The horrifying scene was suddenly silent. The victims within the building, their faces etched with fear, looked on in stunned silence. "It seems we have a new twist," Xylar said, his voice calm, but his eyes burning with a fierce determination. "This is no longer just an observation mission. A new threat, a new challenge." Xylar knew he had a choice to make. He could observe and report, fulfilling his original mission, or he could intervene, potentially changing the course of their history, their very future. He could choose to be a witness or an agent of change. He knew what he had to do, but he didn't know the consequences. He knew, however, that the nightmares of this planet had just gotten a lot more complicated. The alien scout, Xylar, stared out the viewport, his 3 eyes wide with apprehension. The sight before him was not the barren, lifeless wasteland he'd expected. Lush green forests stretched to the horizon, punctuated by glittering rivers and imposing mountains. Yet, a pervasive sense of dread clung to the air, a tangible tension that pulsed like a heartbeat. This is not what the data predicted," Xylar murmured, his voice a low hum that reverberated through the cramped cockpit. His companion, Zark, a veteran explorer with countless planets under his belt, remained stoic. "The data is flawed," he declared, his voice a gravelly rasp. "This world is teeming with life, but it lacks the sophistication we anticipated. These are primitive creatures." Xylar, however, felt a pang of unease. He had studied the reports, the whispered tales of the planet of nightmares, but the reality was far more unsettling. He felt a primal urge to flee, a sense of instinctive fear that he'd never experienced before. They landed in a clearing, the silence broken only by the rustling of leaves. Xylar, armed with a bioscanner, cautiously ventured out. The forest floor was damp and littered with decaying vegetation, the air thick with the scent of moss and decaying wood. Suddenly, a low, guttural growl emanated from the undergrowth. Xylar froze, his scanner whirring frantically. A creature emerged, its body covered in thick, matted fur, its eyes glowing with a malevolent red light. Its teeth, sharp as daggers, gnashed together in a silent threat. "Zark, it's hostile," Xylar yelled, scrambling back towards the spaceship. The creature, however, made no move to attack. It simply stood there, watching them with unsettling intensity. Then, it let out a high-pitched screech that sent shivers down Xylar's spine. The sound was agonizing, a piercing assault on his auditory senses. He felt his vision blur, his head throbbing in pain. As they retreated, the creature's screech continued, echoing through the forest. Xylar noticed something strange. It was not just him. Zark, too, seemed to be affected by the sound. He staggered, his normally strong hand trembling. "Zark, are you okay?" Xylar asked, his voice strained. Zark's eyes, usually sharp and alert, were glazed over. He mumbled something incomprehensible, his voice a raspy whisper. Suddenly, Zark lunged at Xylar, his eyes filled with a primal fury. Xylar instinctively dodged, the bioscanner falling from his grasp. He stumbled back, his mind racing. What was happening? Zark was no longer himself. As Xylar watched in horror, Zark began to speak, but it wasn't his usual language. Instead, a strange, guttural growl came from his throat, a sound that mirrored the creature's call. "It's the sound," Zark choked out, his voice now a raspy growl. "It's altering our minds." A new fear gripped Xylar. The planet of nightmares wasn't about the creatures themselves, but about something far more insidious. The planet itself was alive, using its creatures, its sounds, to infiltrate the minds of any visitor, turning them into mindless slaves. Xylar knew he had to get out of there, but he couldn't leave Zark behind. He had to find a way to reverse the effect, to save his friend, before he, too, became another victim of the planet of nightmares. The air was thick with tension, the forest suddenly a place of unimaginable danger. Xylar's mission had become a fight for survival, a desperate attempt to escape a nightmare he had only heard of before. The true horror of the planet of nightmares was not the creatures, but the insidious, unseen force that was slowly, inevitably, consuming everything it touched. The alien vessel, the Cathar, hummed with a low thrum of its fusion drive as it orbited the planet they had dubbed Nightmare. Captain Xylar, a being of shimmering, iridescent scales and multifaceted eyes, stared at the data streaming onto his console. The reports were consistent. This world was a breeding ground for unimaginable horrors. The flora was aggressive, the fauna more terrifying, and the inhabitants, the so-called humans, were the most perplexing. "Captain," said the navigator, a tall, lanky being with a pair of antennae that twitched in agitation, "I'm detecting strong energy emissions coming from the planet's surface. They seem chaotic, unpredictable." Xylar, his scales shifting with a faint, luminescent pulse, grunted. It's likely their technology. The readings are unlike anything we've encountered before. Perhaps this is where we find the source of their nightmares. He gestured to a junior officer, a young Cathar with bright, eager eyes. Prepare a reconnaissance team. We need to get closer, understand the nature of these emissions. The team, led by the experienced warrior Xylar, descended in a small probe towards the planet. As they breached the atmosphere, a blinding light flashed across the sky. The probe shuddered violently, then fell silent. Xylar, report! Xylo's voice crackled over the comms, filled with growing panic. There was only static in response. They're gone, whispered the navigator, his antennae drooping. Xylo's multifaceted eyes narrowed. He had a sudden, chilling realization. The chaotic energy emissions, they weren't technology. They were something else. Something he couldn't begin to comprehend. It was a feeling, a deep, primal fear, radiating outwards from the planet. It was the fear of something unknown, something that lurked beneath the surface, something that made even the most hardened Cathar warriors shiver in their armor. He had to know. He had to understand what was happening. He ordered the Cathar to move closer, towards the source of the fear. They had a duty, he thought, to unravel the mystery of this planet, even if it meant facing their own deepest fears. The Cathar's approach was met with a flurry of strange, high-energy pulses. These weren't weapons, but something more insidious. The pulses affected the Cathar's systems, causing hallucinations and distortions of reality. The vessel lurched and shuddered, the crew overwhelmed by a surge of unbearable fear. Then, through the chaos, a message. A voice, devoid of any malice, but filled with a chilling indifference. A message in the Cathar's own language. We are the nightmares. This is our domain. Xylo's heart hammered against his ribs. He realized then that the fear was not theirs, not the Cathar's, but the planet's, the very essence of it. This planet wasn't just a source of nightmares, it was a nightmare itself, and they, the Cathar, were now trapped within it. The crew, their minds and bodies ravaged by the relentless assault, were losing hope. The ship, now a prisoner within the planet's gravitational pull, was slowly succumbing to the fear. Xylo, however, felt a spark of defiance ignite within him. He wouldn't let them succumb to the planet's will. He would find a way out, a way to break free from the nightmare. He had to. For the sake of his crew, for the sake of the Cathar, for the sake of their future. The Cathar continued to orbit the planet, now a captive audience to a cosmic horror show. The crew, shaken and terrified, clung to hope. They were not the only ones, Xylo realized. The humans, the planet's inhabitants, they were living with this fear, this nightmare, every day. Their technology, the chaotic energy emissions, it was a desperate attempt to understand, to control, to fight the nightmares. The Cathar had come searching for answers, but they found only more questions. The planet of nightmares wasn't just a place of terror, it was a reflection of something deeper, something that transcended the bounds of their understanding. They were trapped in a terrifying labyrinth, and only time would tell if they would find their way out, or if they would become victims of the nightmares themselves. The alien ambassador, Xylar, stared at the holographic projection of the Earth. Its swirling blues and greens were mesmerizing, yet strangely unsettling. He could feel his own scales prickling, a reaction he hadn't experienced since their last encounter with the infamous nightmares. "It's beautiful," Xylar murmured, his voice a low rumble. "Indeed," agreed Kale, the lead researcher, her antennae twitching in amusement. "Though, I can see why the term Planet of Nightmares might be a tad dramatic." Xylar, however, was unconvinced. The data on Earth, particularly the documented instances of human warfare and environmental degradation, painted a starkly different picture. This planet's history screams of fear, destruction, and a relentless pursuit of self-annihilation, he said, his voice losing its usual calmness. "True, but aren't those just the shadows? Shouldn't we focus on the light? On the resilience, the creativity, the incredible advancements in technology and medicine," Kale countered, her tone gentle yet firm. Xylar looked at her, his 3 eyes gleaming with an unsettling intensity. You believe in this light? You believe that this planet, with its history of violence and self-inflicted pain, can truly be redeemed?" Kale's antennae twitched again. Her own curiosity piqued. She had studied the data, analyzed the patterns, but she had never considered the possibility of Earth's inherent nature. Was it truly a planet of nightmares? Was there something intrinsic to its existence that drove its inhabitants to such extremes? She began, faltering for a moment. "I don't know. Perhaps the light is just an illusion, a fleeting flicker in the face of overwhelming darkness. But it's there, isn't it? And it's worth exploring, isn't it?" Suddenly, the air shimmered, a wave of static washing over the room. The holographic projection flickered and then dissolved, leaving them in darkness. A low hum filled the chamber, growing louder with every passing second. "What's happening?" Kale exclaimed, her antennae vibrating. Xylar, however, was staring at a point just above Kale's head, his eyes wide with shock and dread. "The nightmares," he whispered, "they're here." Kale looked up, just in time to see a shimmering, amorphous form emerge from the static, its edges flickering and changing, its form shifting like a mirage in the desert. It was a being of pure energy, pulsing with an unsettling, malevolent power, its presence a tangible embodiment of fear and chaos. The nightmares had arrived, and they were not here to observe. They were here to claim what they believed was rightfully theirs, the planet of nightmares. The Xylorians, their ship hovering silently over a sprawling metropolis, were stunned. The city, bathed in a sickly yellow glow, seemed to writhe with a malevolent energy. Their scanners, designed to detect the most advanced alien technologies, were overwhelmed by a torrent of chaotic signals, like a symphony of screams. This isn't what we expected," muttered Xyl, the mission leader, his antennae twitching in alarm. He had been sent to Earth to study the planet's unique ecosystem. But what he saw was a horrifying tableau of urban decay, pollution, and something darker, something unnameable. The human ambassador, a man named Michael, watched them with a strained smile. He had been warned about the Xylorians, their reputation for cold logic and ruthless efficiency. He knew he had to convince them that Earth, despite its flaws, was worthy of peaceful coexistence. "We appreciate your interest," Michael said, his voice raspy with nervous energy. "Earth is complex. We are still learning to manage our resources, our own nature." "Learning?" Xyl scoffed, his voice a harsh hiss. "Your technology is beyond comprehension, yet your planet, it screams of chaos and destruction. We have detected abnormalities, phenomena that defy all known laws of physics." The Xylorian ambassador gestured towards the city. "You call this a home? This infestation of nightmares?" A wave of anger flooded Michael. He was tired of the condescending tone, the patronizing pity in the Xylorian's eyes. He took a deep breath and forced himself to be calm. "We are not monsters," he said, his voice firm. "We are survivors, constantly striving to overcome our own flaws. We are aware of the challenges we face, and we are working towards solutions." Xyl remained skeptical. "Solutions? You speak of solutions while your very existence shatters the fabric of reality. Your technology, it bleeds into the very fabric of the universe, creating distortions, anomalies. We have witnessed creatures, things that should not be." A new twist emerged. Michael, sensing the Xylorians' fear, took a chance. He knew the truth. The creatures they were talking about weren't a product of Earth's technology, but of something far more ancient, far more terrifying. He whispered, his voice low and urgent, "You have seen the shadows. The nightmares we face are not of our making. They are ancient, slumbering beneath the surface. We are not the source, but the victims." The Xylorians, their antennae trembling, stared at Michael, a mixture of confusion and fear in their compound eyes. The truth, it seemed, was far more horrifying than they could have imagined. Earth, the planet of nightmares, was not simply a product of humanity's failings. It was a battleground, a crucible where the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. The Xylorians had stumbled upon a secret far greater than they could have ever expected. The tension hung thick in the air. The city's sickly glow, the chaotic signals, the creatures lurking in the shadows all pointed to a chilling reality. The Xylorians, masters of technology and logic, were suddenly facing a challenge that transcended their understanding. They had come to study Earth, but now they were faced with the terrifying truth of its past, and the possibility of a future they could not control. The nightmares of Earth had just become their own. The alien vessel, a sleek, shimmering disk, hung motionless above a desolate, moonlit landscape. Commander Xylos, his insectoid face etched with weariness, addressed his crew gathered in the bridge. "We have confirmed it. This planet, designated Earth, is indeed the planet of nightmares." He gestured to the holographic display, showing a montage of images: a city consumed by a raging inferno, a tsunami swallowing entire coastlines, grotesque, mutated creatures stalking through polluted swamps. The data confirms our worst fears. This planet is a cauldron of self-destruction. Its inhabitants, the humans, seem hell-bent on their own annihilation. Xylos's first officer, the elegant, feline-like Xylar, tilted her head. But why? Their technology is impressive. They are capable of such wondrous feats of engineering. Yet they destroy themselves with such relentless fervor. Xylos sighed. Their history is a tapestry woven with threads of greed, fear, and a disturbing fascination with conflict. They seem incapable of achieving lasting peace. Each time they reach a peak of technological advancement, they turn it against themselves. A young, eager crew member, the lanky, tentacled Xylar, piped up. "But Commander, they have also shown great compassion. We have recorded their heroic efforts to save their own species, their selflessness in the face of disaster. They are not all monsters." Xylos nodded, a flicker of sadness crossing his face. "Indeed, Xylar. But these acts of kindness are but fleeting flames in a vast ocean of destruction. Their self-preservation instincts are overwhelmed by their darker urges, and their nightmares, they are truly terrifying." Suddenly, the vessel shuddered violently. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. The holographic display flickered, showing a massive, humanoid figure, its skin a patchwork of scars and burn marks, its eyes blazing with a terrifying rage. "What is that?" Xylar whispered, her voice tight with fear. Xylos stared at the image, his antennae twitching. "It's a nightmare." He recognized it from the stories his grandmother used to tell. Legends whispered about a being born from the darkest recesses of human nightmares, a manifestation of their collective fear and self-loathing, a being that fed on the chaos and despair they cultivated. "It's here," Xylar said, her voice barely a whisper. "It's real." Xylos knew then that this was more than just an expedition. This was a fight for survival, not only for his crew, but for the entire galaxy. He had come to study Earth, but he might just have to fight it to protect it, and he wasn't sure what would be worse: the human self-inflicted destruction or the horrifying reality that their nightmares had become tangible. The alien vessel, a sleek, obsidian disk, hovered silently above a teeming human metropolis. Inside, Xylar, the young Xenonian anthropologist, stared out the viewport, his 6 eyes wide with fascination and a touch of horror. He had come to Earth on a mission of scientific exploration, seeking to unravel the enigma behind its nightmarish reputation. "It's chaotic," he muttered, his voice a melodic hum that resonated with a subtle, unsettling vibrato. Even from this distance, the energy pulsates with a strange, unsettling rhythm. Next to him stood Xath, his mentor and a seasoned Xenonian explorer. Xath, with his scarred, ancient face and deep, gravelly voice, scoffed. "Chaos is just another form of order, Xylar. What you see is the result of their advanced technology, their insatiable desire for progress, he paused, their existential anxieties." Xylar shuddered, feeling a chill crawl down his multi-segmented spine. "Existential anxieties? What do you mean?" Xath leaned in, his voice a low rasp. "They are a species obsessed with control, Xylar. They fight constantly, over resources, ideology, even the very definition of reality itself. Their history is a tapestry woven from fear, greed, and a profound sense of unease. The words hung heavy in the air, echoing Xylar's own growing unease. He had been expecting monsters, grotesque creatures of the abyss, not humans. As they descended closer to the city, the alien vessel's sensors picked up a new anomaly. "Zath," Xylar whispered, "there's another vessel below. It's a human craft, but it's emitting a powerful energy signature. One that doesn't match anything we've seen before." Zath's eyes narrowed. "It's a military vessel, Xylar. A warship. And it's heading straight for us." Panic seized Xylar, but Zath remained calm. "Don't worry, it's just a precaution. They probably detected our presence and are sending out a patrol." The human warship, a sleek, gray behemoth with its hull etched with intricate patterns, approached the Xenonian ship with menacing speed. Its weapon systems, visible through the vessel's transparent hull, pulsed with a dark, ominous glow. Suddenly, a message crackled through the Xenonian ship's communication system. The human voice, distorted and raspy, echoed through the cabin. "This is the United States Navy. You are in violation of international airspace. Identify yourselves and comply with our orders, or face the consequences." Xylar stared at the screen, his 6 eyes wide with fear. "Zath, what do we do?" Zath, however, remained unfazed. He looked at Xylar with a knowing smile. "This is where things get interesting, Xylar. It seems the nightmares on this planet are not just in their history, but also in their future. We are about to witness a truly fascinating spectacle." He turned back to the screen, his voice booming through the Xenonian ship's speakers. "We come in peace," he announced, his voice tinged with a strange, hypnotic tremor. "We are students of your world, seeking to understand its mysteries." The human voice on the screen remained silent for a moment. Then, a new message appeared. "You are not students. You are intruders, and you are not welcome here." The human warship's guns aimed directly at the Xenonian ship, their energy weapons crackling with anticipation. Xylar felt his heart pounding against his chitinous exoskeleton. "Zath, they are going to attack." Zath chuckled, a dry, crackling sound. "They think they can stop us. They think they can control their own destiny. But they are wrong, Xylar. They are just puppets, dancing to a tune they do not understand." He glanced back at Xylar, his eyes burning with an unsettling intensity. "We are not here to fight, Xylar. We are here to observe. And sometimes, the greatest lessons are learned through the most unexpected tragedies." The human warship fired, its weapons unleashing a blinding flash of light. The Xenonian vessel, however, remained unharmed, the energy beams passing through it like shadows. Xylar, staring in disbelief, whispered, "But how?" Zath smiled, a knowing smirk playing across his ancient face. "They are not ready for us, Xylar. They are not ready for the truth." The alien vessel, the Celestial Wanderer, hovered over the desolate wasteland that was once the city of Los Angeles. Captain Xylar, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with morbid curiosity, stared at the cracked asphalt and twisted metal. Her crew, a motley group of insectoid, reptilian, and sentient plant-like beings, murmured amongst themselves, their voices a symphony of clicks, hisses, and rustling leaves. "They called this place the City of Angels," Lyra said, her voice a low hum. "They called it a paradise." "Clearly, they were delusional," rasped Xylo, the ship's navigator, a reptilian being with scales the color of polished jade. "This place is a nightmare, just like the rest of the planet." Lyra nodded, her antennae twitching. The data they had collected painted a grim picture. Earth was a planet of extremes, where the natural world had waged war against itself and its inhabitants. Hurricanes ripped through continents, volcanoes spewed ash into the sky, and entire ecosystems collapsed under the weight of human greed. "It's fascinating," said Ayla, the ship's botanist, her leaves rustling softly. "The way they've managed to destroy their own environment. They're like a virus, consuming everything in their path." Lyra, however, saw something else in the data, a spark of hope, a flickering candle in the darkness. "Perhaps," she said, her voice tinged with a cautious optimism. This is not a story of total destruction. What if it's a story of evolution? Her words were met with silence. The crew was skeptical, even the usually optimistic Ayla. Evolution, Xylar scoffed. From what I've seen, they're regressing, not evolving. They're becoming more like the creatures they've destroyed, blind, destructive, and selfish. Lyra shook her head. I believe there's more to it, she said, her gaze fixed on the data streams flowing through the ship's console. They've created a technology that could save them, a technology that can cleanse the planet and restore it to its former glory. The crew was intrigued. The concept of a planet capable of healing itself was unheard of. Xylar's skepticism remained, but a flicker of interest appeared in his eyes. What technology? He asked, his voice laced with curiosity. Lyra smiled faintly. It's called Earth Restoration Protocol. It's a system of interconnected technologies designed to reverse the damage they've done. But how do we know it works? Ayla asked, her leaves trembling slightly. Lyra looked at her with a resolute expression. We don't know for sure, she said, but it's worth investigating. It might be the key to understanding why this planet is both a nightmare and a beacon of hope. She turned back to the console, her antennae twitching with excitement. Let's activate the probe, she said. We'll send it down to the surface and see what we can learn about this so-called Earth Restoration Protocol. As the probe descended towards the ruined city, a new twist emerged. The data streams from the probe revealed an unexpected truth. The Earth Restoration Protocol was not a technological marvel designed by humans. It was a biological system, a hidden network of interconnected organisms, a silent force of nature working tirelessly to heal the planet. This revelation sparked a debate among the alien crew. They were all aware of the dangers of interfering with a planet's natural processes. However, they were also aware of the potential for disaster if they did nothing. The decision they made, however, would change the fate of both Earth and their own civilization forever. The Xylarian probe, a sleek, metallic disk, hovered over the desolate wasteland that was once New York City. Its sensors whirred, processing data from the desolate remains of human civilization. It's unbelievable, whispered Commander Xylar, his antennae twitching in confusion. They had come in peace, seeking a planet to replenish their dying homeworld. Earth, with its diverse ecosystems and rich history, had seemed ideal. However, the reality was far grimmer than their scans had indicated. Crumbling towers, rusted metal carcasses, and the eerie silence of an abandoned city painted a picture of a civilization consumed by chaos. The records say it was called a nuclear war, reported Xylar, his voice tinged with a sadness that was foreign to his race. They destroyed themselves. But why? Asked Xylar, his gaze fixed on a grotesque monument to human ambition, the skeletal remains of a skyscraper. They were so advanced. They had the potential to achieve greatness. What drove them to this? The probe's sensors picked up a faint signal, a flickering radio wave emanating from a forgotten bunker deep beneath the rubble. Intrigued, Xylar ordered the probe to investigate. As they descended into the depths, the bunker's interior revealed a chilling truth. The air hung heavy with a scent of decay and desperation. The walls were covered in graffiti depictions of suffering, despair, and a chillingly familiar symbol, a skull with an hourglass inside. Suddenly, a holographic projector flickered to life, projecting a ghostly image of a woman. Her eyes were wide with fear, her voice raspy and strained. They came in the night, she whispered, her voice echoing through the bunker. The shadows, they took everything. Our homes, our families, our hope. They left only darkness and silence. Shadows? Xylar muttered, confused. What are these shadows? The woman's image flickered and died, leaving them with more questions than answers. The Xylarians had discovered the truth. Earth wasn't just a planet of self-destruction. It was also a planet of nightmares. But who were these shadows, and what had they done to humanity? A new fear gripped Xylar. If the shadows could drive humans to such despair, what would they do to his own people? He knew then, with a sudden, chilling certainty, that they were not alone in this vast universe. They had a common enemy, an enemy that had driven humanity to its knees and could do the same to them. This wasn't just a mission of exploration anymore. It was a mission of survival. The Xylarians had found a new home, but they had also found a new threat, and the fate of their race hung in the balance. Captain Xylar's antennae twitched nervously as he scanned the latest data. It was official. Earth was a planet of nightmares, not because of the monsters and monsters, but because of something far more insidious: human nature. The report, compiled by his best analysts, painted a picture of endless conflict, environmental devastation, and a horrifying indifference to suffering. "It's a paradox," Xylar muttered, his voice echoing in the quiet command center. "They are capable of such incredible things, yet their own actions threaten to destroy them. What are we to do?" His first officer, Xylar, a seasoned veteran with a calming presence, spoke softly. "We must understand them, Captain. Their motivations, their fears, their desires. Only then can we know how to intervene, if intervention is even possible." Xylar knew Xylar was right. Their initial assessment was based on crude observations of their technology and social structures. They had mistaken the shadows for monsters. They had failed to see the beauty and resilience that also existed within humanity. "We need to get closer," Xylar said, his gaze intense. "Not with our ships, but with our minds. We need to understand them as individuals, not just as a species." Their next mission was audacious: to infiltrate Earth's information networks and learn about its people through their own stories, their own voices. They would become silent observers, reading the whispers of human consciousness. As they delved deeper into the data, they discovered a hidden world. They found stories of courage and compassion, of love and sacrifice, of hope and redemption. They saw the beauty in human creativity, the ingenuity in their inventions, the depth of their emotions. But amidst this beauty, they also found the darkness, the greed, the fear, the hate. They witnessed the horrors of war, the cruelty of oppression, the apathy in the face of injustice. A new twist emerged from this digital exploration. They discovered a hidden network, a global conspiracy, known only as the Shadow Collective. This group, cloaked in anonymity, used advanced technology to manipulate and control human actions. They were responsible for much of the conflict and suffering that had so shocked the Xylargonian scientists. Xylar, ever the strategist, suggested, "We must expose them, Captain. Their actions are a threat to Earth and to our understanding of their potential." Xylar agreed, but he also felt a sense of responsibility. "We cannot simply act like some cosmic judge," he said. "We must find a way to help them, to show them that they have the power to change their destiny." The Xylargonians, now walking a tightrope between observation and intervention, faced a critical decision. How could they help a species teetering on the brink of self-destruction, while respecting their free will and protecting them from the Shadow Collective's influence? The answer lay in understanding, in communication, in the very human capacity for empathy that they were just beginning to grasp. The planet of nightmares was about to be challenged by a new reality, one that held the potential for a brighter future, if only they could find the way to navigate it. The alien vessel, a shimmering orb of iridescent metal, hung suspended in the Earth's atmosphere. Its occupants, the Xylosians, a race known for their logic and detached observation, were baffled. Their preliminary scans had revealed a planet teeming with life, a symphony of complex organisms and ecosystems. Yet, this life was also marked by a stark duality, a constant battle between creation and destruction. "They call themselves humans," the Xylosian leader, Xylos, stated, his voice a series of clicks and whistles, translated into human speech by the vessel's advanced communication system. "They seem to possess remarkable intelligence, capable of building intricate structures and mastering technology. Yet, they also engage in acts of immense cruelty, both towards each other and towards their own planet." His second-in-command, Xylar, leaned forward, her antennae twitching. "It seems their emotional nature is a double-edged sword. They are capable of great love and compassion, but also of unimaginable hate and violence." The Xylosians watched with fascination as a human city sprawled below. The gleaming towers and bustling streets were punctuated by towering slums and the stark reality of poverty. Their history is a tapestry of both progress and regression, Xylos continued, scrolling through their data stream. They have ascended to the apex of their technological potential, only to destroy themselves through wars, famine, and ecological devastation. Yet, Xyla countered, they also possess an innate resilience. They rebuild, learn from their mistakes, and continue to strive for a better future. Suddenly, the vessel shuddered, a red warning light flashing on the console. Xylos froze, his antennae drooping. "We're being detected," he announced, his voice tight with apprehension. "Human radar systems have locked onto us." The Xylosians had come in peace, seeking to learn, not to intervene. But their presence was already a disruption, an unwanted intrusion into this strange world. The warning light flashed again, more urgently now, and the vessel began to descend rapidly. As they plummeted towards the Earth, the Xylosians realized they had stumbled into a far greater dilemma. The human race was not simply a species torn between its own good and bad. It was also a species caught in a web of its own creation, a web woven from technology, ambition, and fear. The Xylosians landed in a secluded forest, their arrival a jarring intrusion into the quiet tranquility. As they cautiously emerged, they found themselves face to face with a human, a young woman with inquisitive eyes and a wary smile. "Hello," she said, her voice hesitant but friendly. "I'm Sarah. What are you?" The Xylosians exchanged glances. This was not the reaction they had anticipated. Fear, hostility, perhaps even an attack. But Sarah was simply curious, intrigued by the sight of their strange ship. "We are Xylosians," Xylos responded, his voice still translated into human speech. "We come in peace." Sarah tilted her head, her curiosity undiminished. "That's interesting. But why are you here? And why are you so strange?" The Xylosians found themselves at a crossroads. They could remain silent, hoping to observe and learn from a distance, or they could risk revealing their purpose, hoping for understanding and a chance to connect with this complex, enigmatic species. Xylos looked at Sarah, at her open face and her genuine curiosity, and he knew what he had to do. He decided to tell her the truth. "We come seeking answers," he said, "about the planet you call Earth, and the beings who inhabit it. We have come to understand why you call it the planet of nightmares." As Xylos began to explain their mission, Sarah listened, her eyes widening with every detail. This was not the invasion she had feared, but a quest for knowledge, a search for meaning in the midst of humanity's struggles. The Xylosians had come to Earth, not as invaders, but as students. They had come to learn, but they were about to discover something even more profound. They had come to understand that the planet of nightmares was also a planet of hope, a planet where resilience and kindness could bloom even amidst the darkness. The alien probe, a sleek, metallic insect with shimmering wings, hummed with data. It had been sent to Earth, a planet known across the galaxy as the Planet of Nightmares, to investigate the reason behind its ominous label. The probe had observed for weeks, documenting the chaos and destruction that marked Earth's history. Now, its sensor array buzzed with a startling discovery. "This is unexpected," the probe's AI, a being of pure logic named Ethel, murmured to itself. A large, metallic structure, resembling a giant, shimmering spiderweb, was being constructed in the heart of a bustling city. It wasn't the structure itself that intrigued Ethel, but the energy signature emanating from it. It pulsated with an energy similar to that found in the ruins of ancient civilizations, a powerful force that Ethel had only encountered in legends. Ethel knew it was time to report its findings. It had been programmed to prioritize data collection and reporting over direct intervention. But this discovery, this potential for both good and destruction, could mean more than just rewriting the records on Earth. It could mean a shift in the galactic order. Meanwhile, on Earth, a young woman named Anya, a brilliant scientist and a self-proclaimed dreamer, was the driving force behind the construction of the giant web. Anya was a descendant of a long line of engineers, each with a unique ability to manipulate energy. Their lineage traced back to the ancient civilization that had once held the secrets of the web's creation. Anya believed that the web held the key to unlocking a new era of peace and prosperity for her world. "We can harness the power of the web to create clean energy," Anya explained to her team, her voice filled with passion. "We can use it to heal the planet, to connect all of us." But Anya's dream was not without its critics. There was Kaido, a cynical, pragmatic engineer who believed that the web was too dangerous, too unpredictable. "It's a ticking time bomb," he warned. "We don't understand it. It could unleash something terrible." As Ethel relayed its findings to the Galactic Council, the debate began. The council, made up of representatives from various alien races, was divided. Some saw the web as a potential threat, a weapon that could be used to subjugate entire planets. Others saw it as an opportunity, a chance to unlock the secrets of ancient civilizations and advance their own. A new twist unfolded. Ethel's report caught the attention of a powerful, reclusive faction known as the Shadow Council. They had long been rumored to be behind the planet's designation as Planet of Nightmares, and their intentions were shrouded in mystery. With the discovery of the web, the stakes were raised. Anya, Kaido, Ethel, and the Galactic Council, each with their own ambitions and anxieties, were thrust into a dangerous game of power and discovery. The web, with its potential for both good and evil, would become the center of it all. The Planet of Nightmares was about to become a battleground, and the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy, hung in the balance. The silence in the observation deck was thick, broken only by the rhythmic hum of the Xylos ship. Captain Xylar, a seasoned explorer with eyes as deep as the nebula he'd traversed, stared at the screen, his normally stoic features etched with worry. The images, the flickering lights, the terrifying screams, the city reduced to ash were burned into his memory. He had seen many strange and wondrous things in his journeys, but nothing had prepared him for this. "It's unfathomable," whispered his first officer, the young and idealistic Xylar, her usually bright eyes clouded with despair. "Indeed," agreed Xylar, his voice gravelly. "This world, this Earth, it's not the paradise we expected. It's a nightmare." He glanced at the report from their scout, a nimble little craft that had been exploring the planet's surface for the past few days. The data was horrifying. It revealed a cycle of violence, a constant war against nature, and, most alarmingly, against each other. The reports speak of a creature they call man, Xylar, a species capable of unimaginable cruelty, of crafting weapons that could shatter entire worlds, yet they destroy themselves with them. Xylar shuddered. And their history, it's filled with horrors. Centuries of war, plagues, famine. It's as if they are cursed to live in constant chaos. Xylar looked at her, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Perhaps they are," he said quietly. "Perhaps they are cursed by the very thing that makes them unique, their intelligence. They have reached the pinnacle of scientific advancement, yet their hearts remain dark and their souls untamed. They are a paradox, a contradiction." A new voice interrupted their somber musings. It belonged to Xylos, their ship's AI, a sentient being of pure logic and data. "Captain, a new signal. Incoming transmission from the planet's surface. It appears to be a coded message." Xylar's eyes narrowed. "Code it. Analyze it." Moments later, the screen flickered, revealing the words, "We are not alone. We are not alone. Help us." The message was simple, desperate, but it came from a source that shocked them, the very heart of the Earth's military, a network that they had initially deemed to be the main perpetrator of this planetary madness. "This changes everything," Xylar said, her voice trembling with hope. "Perhaps there are those among them who desire peace, who seek help. Perhaps this is our chance to intervene." Xylar, however, remained skeptical. "It could be a trap, a desperate attempt to lure us into their conflict. We need to be careful." He gazed out the window at the swirling blue planet, its beauty tainted by the horrors they had witnessed. "The decision is ours, Xylar. Do we intervene? Do we risk becoming embroiled in their war? Or do we turn away and leave them to their fate?" Xylar looked at him, her gaze unwavering. "We can't leave them," she said softly. "Not after what we've seen. We can't allow this madness to continue. We must try to help them." Xylar felt a tug in his chest, a conflict between logic and empathy. He knew the risks, the potential dangers, but he also felt a responsibility, a sense of duty. He looked at Xylar, her face a beacon of hope. "Very well," he said finally, his voice firm. "We will answer their call. But we will do so cautiously. We will tread lightly. And we will hope that, somewhere beneath the darkness, there is a flicker of light waiting to be ignited." The ship hummed, preparing for its descent, as the Xylos prepared to embark on a mission of hope, a perilous journey into the heart of the planet of nightmares. They were about to learn that sometimes the most terrifying creatures are not those that lurk in the shadows, but those that hide in plain sight, and that even in the darkest of times, hope can flicker, offering a chance for redemption. The Xylar ship, a sleek obsidian needle piercing the Earth's atmosphere, hummed with a low, dissonant hum. Commander Xylos, his six-eyed gaze fixed on the monitor, felt a pang of apprehension. The data was undeniable. This planet, Earth, pulsed with an energy unlike anything they'd ever encountered. It wasn't just the chaotic weather, the volatile tectonic activity, or the violent life forms. It was something deeper, a collective pulse of primal fear. "The readings are off the charts, Commander," reported Xylara, the ship's navigator, her voice laced with concern. "The fear, it's like a living entity, constantly evolving, morphing." Xylos, a seasoned explorer known for his calm demeanor, felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew fear, a vital survival instinct. But the fear emanating from Earth was something else entirely, a force that seemed to be feeding off itself, growing stronger with each passing moment. Their initial scans had revealed a world teeming with diverse life, but the majority seemed to be living in a perpetual state of anxiety, driven by an irrational fear of the unknown. From the colossal creatures that roamed the land to the microscopic organisms that thrived in the oceans, everything appeared to be fueled by this primal terror. "What could be causing this?" Xylara asked, her voice strained. Xylos, his mind racing, scanned the reports again. There were pockets of relative peace, places where the fear was weaker. These were the areas where humans, a dominant species on Earth, seemed to have found some semblance of order. "There's a pattern," he said, his voice filled with growing intrigue. "The humans, they're the key. They seem to be both victims and perpetuators of this fear." A shiver ran down Xylara's six-limbed frame. "Perpetrators?" she echoed, her tone incredulous. "But how? They seem so vulnerable, so easily terrified." Xylos pointed to a data stream depicting human interactions. "They create their own nightmares," he explained, his voice low. "Stories, legends, fictional worlds built upon fear. They feed off the fear they generate, perpetuating a cycle of terror." Just as he finished speaking, the ship shuddered. Alarms blared, their high-pitched whine cutting through the hum of the engines. "What is it?" Xylara yelled over the cacophony. Xylos's six eyes widened in alarm. "It's the fear," he breathed, his voice barely a whisper. "It's reacting to us, trying to consume us." He glanced at the holographic display depicting their surroundings. Outside, the Earth was awash in a crimson glow, the sky filled with swirling clouds of red energy. The fear, once a subtle hum, had become a roaring inferno, and it was coming for them. Their mission, to explore and understand, had just taken a terrifying turn. They had come to understand the planet of nightmares, but now they were caught within its suffocating grip. The alien vessel, shimmering emerald green against the backdrop of a crimson sunset, hovered over the desolate wasteland of what was once Nevada. Xylar, the young alien anthropologist, shivered despite the oppressive heat. He had seen countless planets, each with its own beauty and terror, but this one felt different. "They call it the planet of nightmares," muttered Xylar, his elder, the seasoned captain. "For a reason, it seems." Xylar looked around at the twisted metal carcasses, remnants of a civilization that had vanished, leaving behind only an eerie silence. "But why? Why are they afraid?" "Fear is a powerful motivator, young one," Xylar replied, his voice raspy. It drives them to create, to innovate, to destroy. And in their attempts to escape their nightmares, they create more. Xylar felt a pang of empathy. He had seen his own people driven by fear, driven to explore the galaxy, searching for something more, something better. But the Earthlings, they had created a terrifying reality. A reality where technology had become a weapon, a tool for destruction. He had seen the evidence in the ruins of their cities, their machines, their weapons. It was a chilling testament to their fear, a fear that had turned inwards, consuming them. Suddenly, a flash of light in the distance caught Xylar's attention. It was faint, a flicker in the haze, but unmistakable. A signal. "Captain," Xylar whispered, his voice filled with urgency. "It's a beacon. A signal." Xylar's eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. All Earthling communication systems are long gone." "But it's there, I'm sure of it," Xylar insisted, his eagerness bordering on desperation. He was a scholar, a researcher, and this signal held the key to understanding the Earthlings, their fear, their nightmares. Xylar sighed. "Very well, young one. We'll investigate." He ordered the vessel to descend towards the signal, but kept the shields at full power. They had learned the hard way not to trust any Earthling technology. As they approached, the signal grew stronger, a rhythmic pulse that seemed to thrum through the very air. A flicker of light danced on the horizon, growing larger, brighter. Then, with a sudden roar, the signal exploded. The alien vessel was enveloped in a blinding flash, the air crackling with energy. Xylar cried out in alarm, his voice lost in the cacophony of alarms. The vessel shook violently, its shields straining against the overwhelming power of the signal. But the signal was not a weapon. It was a message that sent a shockwave through the crew, a message that changed everything they thought they knew about Earth. It was a message from the Earthlings, not the ones who had perished, not the ones whose legacy was the ruins they saw around them. This message came from another group, a group that had survived, a group that had learned from the mistakes of the past. And this message was not one of fear, it was a message of hope. The signal wasn't a weapon, but a beacon of hope from a hidden Earthling civilization that has found a way to live in harmony with technology, having overcome the fear and destructive tendencies of their predecessors. They are not the planet of nightmares, but a new, peaceful society, offering hope to the universe. The story now shifts focus from understanding the fear of the Earthlings to understanding how they overcame it and what they have learned. The story can now explore themes of redemption, hope, and the potential for peace in a galaxy where fear often prevails. The alien vessel, a sleek silver disk with pulsating blue lights, hovered silently over a desolate wasteland. Commander Xylar, his 6 eyes narrowed in concentration, peered through the viewport at the barren landscape. The Earth, once a vibrant blue jewel, now resembled a cracked and dying husk. Their scanners, however, had picked up faint signals emanating from a lone, dilapidated building on the horizon. "It's a power plant," Xylar announced, his voice a low, guttural hum. "Perhaps it holds clues as to why this world became this." He gestured to the crew, a diverse group of insectoid, reptilian, and even vaguely humanoid beings, each specializing in a different aspect of their mission. They were the vanguard of the Galactic Exploration Corps, tasked with investigating the mysterious disappearance of Earth's civilization. "Commander," whispered Anya, their biolinguist, her voice a gentle purring. "Our sensors detect faint, fluctuating patterns within the building's core, possibly remnants of the former inhabitants' communication systems." Xylar nodded, a flicker of hope passing through his multifaceted eyes. "Then we shall investigate, but proceed with caution, team. We know little of these creatures or their capabilities." As they entered the abandoned plant, a strange silence hung heavy in the air. Rusted machinery and cracked concrete gave the impression of a time capsule frozen in the midst of a frantic evacuation. Dust lay thick on everything, a shroud of neglect and decay. Xylar's antennae twitched, his senses picking up faint echoes of the past. "It's as if they fled in haste," observed Rax. their geologist, his thick, scaly hide shimmering under the artificial light. The tools are still in place, but no one seems to have touched them in centuries. Suddenly, a high-pitched whine filled the air. A holographic projection flickered into existence, displaying an image of a human. Its face, contorted in a grimace of terror, was the first visual evidence of Earth's inhabitants they had ever seen. "This is what we are looking for," rasped Xylar, the image sending shivers down his segmented spine. The last known recording from Earth. The recording, a faded and fragmented transmission, showed a chaotic scene. Humans, their bodies mangled and covered in oozing sores, were fleeing in a panicked frenzy. A monstrous creature, its form obscured by a flickering signal, chased them relentlessly. "This is not an attack," Xylar stated, his voice devoid of emotion. "This is something much worse." The new complication was not an enemy they could fight, but a force that had driven Earth's civilization to a state of utter terror. It was a nightmare made flesh, something that defied their understanding, something that had turned a world teeming with life into a desolate wasteland. Xylar knew, with a certainty that chilled him to his core, that this was only the beginning. They had come to Earth to find answers, but instead, they had found a horrifying truth that threatened not only Earth, but the entire galaxy. The planet of nightmares, it seemed, was a harbinger of something much more sinister, something that could shatter the fragile peace of their universe. The Xylar's flagship, the Stargazer, hovered over a desolate, dust-choked landscape. Captain Xylar, his iridescent scales shimmering in the harsh sun, stared at the desolate city below. "So this is it," he muttered, his voice a rasping hiss. "Planet of nightmares." His first officer, Xylar, a young, fiery Xylar with an almost human-like curiosity, leaned forward. "Captain, the scans are inconclusive. There are no signs of advanced life, but the readings, they're just wrong." Xylar sighed. The information gleaned from the ancient probe, intercepted near the fringes of the galaxy, had painted a terrifying picture. A planet teeming with creatures that had evolved to be both cunning and cruel, a species that had seemingly extinguished itself through endless wars and self-destruction. They had expected a barren world, a tombstone to a fallen civilization. Instead, they found a planet seemingly untouched, but with a disturbingly low level of energy readings and near-total absence of life forms. "What about the nightmares?" Xylar pressed, her 6 eyes reflecting the desolate landscape. "What exactly are they? The probe's data is incomplete." Xylar frowned. "We've analyzed every fragment of data. It seems the nightmares weren't just creatures, but also a concept, a psychic plague that spread across the planet, driving its inhabitants into madness and violence. The data suggests they were consumed by a profound sense of fear, a terror so deep, so primal, that it tore them apart from the inside out." "But why are we here? What's the point of studying a dead world?" Xylar questioned, a note of frustration in her voice. "There's no life, no civilization, no lessons to be learned." Xylar turned to her, his expression unreadable. "There's more to this than meets the eye, Xylar. We're not just studying a dead world. We're studying a warning that could be the key to our own survival." He paused, his voice low. "The probe also mentioned a survivor, one who managed to escape the nightmares. We're here to find them, to understand how they escaped, and maybe, just maybe, how to avoid a similar fate." A tremor shook the ship, sending a ripple of unease through the crew. Xylar, her eyes wide with alarm, pointed at the screen. "Captain, sensors are picking up a massive energy surge. It's coming from the city." Xylar's scales flared, a sign of intense focus. "Prepare the landing party. We're going down." As they descended towards the city, the energy surge intensified. The Xylar's sensors registered a powerful psychic wave emanating from the heart of the city, a wave that pulsed with a raw, untamed power. It was a nightmare of its own, a wave of terror that threatened to engulf them all. And then, as they pierced through the dust clouds, they saw it. A colossal structure, towering above the city, a beacon of defiance amidst the desolation. It pulsated with an ethereal energy, casting long, flickering shadows across the landscape. The energy surge was coming from here. Landing in the debris-strewn plaza, they found themselves surrounded by silent, ruined structures. The Xylars, used to the vibrant ecosystems of their home planet, found the silence unnerving, the stillness heavy with an almost tangible sense of fear. And then, from the depths of the colossal structure, a figure emerged. Tall and slender, with skin as white as bone and eyes that glowed an unnatural crimson, it stood bathed in the ethereal light. It was the survivor, the one who had escaped the nightmares. But the question remained, how, and what had it become? The alien delegation, their faces etched with both awe and horror, had seen enough. The nightmares of Earth, as they were labeled, were not just horrific, but also strangely compelling. They had witnessed the destructive power of humanity's wars, the devastation wrought by their own technology, and the sheer existential dread that seemed to permeate every corner of human society. It is a wonder, the leader of the delegation, Xylar, mused, that they have not destroyed themselves entirely already. Their self-destructive tendencies are unmatched, another member of the delegation, Zark, agreed. Yet, there is a strange beauty in their chaos, a captivating vulnerability. As they prepared to leave, a small, unexpected event changed everything. A single human child, with eyes full of wonder and innocence, approached the alien ship. Holding out a small, worn teddy bear, the child looked up at the towering vessel with a wide, hopeful smile. "Hello?" the child said in a voice barely a whisper. "Can you take me with you?" The alien delegation, their cold, analytical minds completely unprepared for such a simple gesture, stared in shock. This was not the image of fear and despair they had witnessed. This was the very embodiment of hope and vulnerability. "No, child," Xylar said gently, his voice surprisingly soothing. "We must return to our own world. But know this, you are not alone. You are not the planet of nightmares. You are a planet of possibilities." And with that, the alien ship, leaving behind a silent, hopeful child and a changed perception of Earth, disappeared into the vast expanse of space. The nightmares, they realized, were not a defining feature of Earth. They were just a part of the story. The real story was of resilience, of hope, and of the unending possibility that even amidst the darkness, light could always find a way to shine through. The child, clutching their teddy bear, watched the ship disappear, a quiet determination hardening in their eyes. They knew, somehow, that their journey had just begun. The nightmares were still there, but now they had a purpose. They had a story to tell, and that story, it turned out, was not one of nightmares at all, but one of hope. The ship shuddered, its engines groaning in protest as they fought the gravitational pull of Earth. Outside the viewport, the planet hung, a swirling blue and green marble tinged with the sickly yellow of polluted skies. "Prepare for landing," the pilot, Xylar, announced, his voice a low rumble. "We will be entering the atmosphere in 5 minutes." The team, a motley crew of Xylorians, braced themselves for the brutal descent. They had spent weeks analyzing Earth's data stream, horrified by the stories of war, pollution, and the endless suffering of its inhabitants. "It's a nightmare," Xylar had said, shaking his head. "This is why they call it the planet of nightmares." As they landed on a deserted stretch of beach, the team stepped out, their faces contorted in disgust at the stench of pollution and the sight of a crumbling, rusted metal structure in the distance. This was their first contact with the planet they had studied for so long. Suddenly, a small figure emerged from the ruins, its form wavering in the heat haze. It was a young human, no older than 10, its eyes wide with fear, its hands trembling. "Don't hurt me," it whispered, its voice barely audible. The Xylorians were taken aback. This wasn't the fear and aggression they had expected. Instead, it was a child, fragile and vulnerable. Xylar, his heart softening, approached the child cautiously. "We mean you no harm," he said, his voice carefully modulated to sound soothing. The child, sensing no immediate threat, stepped closer. "Are you here to take us away?" it asked, its voice small. "Are you here to save us?" Xylar hesitated, unsure how to answer. "Save you from what?" he asked gently. The child's eyes widened. "From ourselves," it whispered, its voice trembling. "From the nightmares we've created." Xylar looked around at the desolate landscape, the crumbling buildings, the polluted air. He understood. But then, something caught his eye. A small, green sprout pushing through the cracked concrete, a tiny testament to life's resilience. He saw a spark of hope, a hint of something beautiful in this seemingly barren world. "We are here to learn," Xylar said, his voice firm, "and to share." He knelt down, reaching out to the child, who took his hand with a tentative trust. "We are not here to judge," Xylar continued, his gaze sweeping over the desolate landscape, "but to understand." As they watched the young human, a beacon of hope in this ravaged world, Xylar realized the truth. The planet of nightmares was not a place of perpetual darkness. It was a place where, even amidst the shadows, a flicker of hope could still emerge. And perhaps, he thought, it was this flicker, this resilient spirit, that truly defined Earth. The planet of nightmares, yes, but also the planet of unexpected hope. The Xylorians were about to learn that the most chilling of nightmares could be the most powerful of awakenings. The Xylorians, their sleek silver ships casting long shadows across the Earth's ravaged surface, huddled in the flickering light of their control room. The data was in, and it was horrifying. Their analysis confirmed what their initial observations suggested. Earth, a planet once teeming with life, had become a wasteland of twisted metal and decaying flesh. "The humans," rasped Xylorian Commander Xylo, his voice a guttural echo in the stark room, "they destroyed themselves. Greed, war, and a thirst for power consumed them." His words hung heavy in the air, a chilling testament to the planet's self-inflicted doom. But a flicker of curiosity, barely discernible, danced in his reptilian eyes. "Yet," he continued, his gaze fixed on the data display, "there is a peculiarity, a fragment of data, almost lost, but undeniable. It speaks of something extraordinary." The screen lit up, revealing a single, cryptic sentence. "The humans learned to fight back. They learned to adapt. They learned to survive." The Xylorians exchanged bewildered glances. Survival? In the face of such utter destruction, it seemed impossible. But the data was irrefutable. And then, a tremor shook their ship. A low, guttural growl echoed from beneath the ship's hull, a sound both ancient and terrifying. "What is that?" whispered one Xylorian, his voice tight with fear. I don't know," stammered Xylo, his gaze fixed on the screen. The tremor intensified, the growl growing louder, morphing into a deafening roar that seemed to tear the very fabric of the earth. The Xylorians scrambled for their weapons, fear replacing their curiosity. Suddenly, the control room door burst open, revealing a figure that sent a cold shiver down their spines. It was human, yet not as they remembered. Its skin, scarred and weathered, was a canvas of resilience. Its eyes, glowing with an inner fire, held a steely determination that sent chills down their spines. "You came looking for the reason Earth is called the planet of nightmares," the figure rasped, its voice a whisper that seemed to come from the very depths of the Earth. "But you forgot one thing. We, the survivors, are the reason it lives up to its name." The Xylorians backed away, their weapons trembling in their hands. They had come to study Earth's downfall, but now they were face to face with its terrifying rebirth. And as the last rays of the setting sun cast long shadows across the ravaged landscape, the Xylorians realized, with a sudden, chilling clarity, that Earth wasn't just the planet of nightmares. It was also the planet of monsters. The Xylarthan ambassador, Xylar, coughed, the sound echoing unnaturally in the cavernous chamber. "It seems our assumptions were flawed. We miscalculated. The planet of nightmares is not a designation of fear, but of ... inspiration." The human delegation, still reeling from the revelation of the Xylarthan's true intentions, looked at each other in disbelief. "Inspiration?" Xylar continued, his voice hoarse. "Your nightmares, your darkest fears, are not simply the product of a troubled mind, but the source of your greatest creations. You see, on Xylarth, our nightmares are sterile, devoid of meaning. They are simply echoes of past trauma. But you, humans, you use them. You mold them into art, into innovation, into progress. You turn them into stories, into music, into even weapons. Your fear is not just a weakness, it is a wellspring of creativity. He held up a hand, silencing the murmur of disbelief and confusion. And so, we come to you not as conquerors, but as students. We want to learn, to understand, to harness the power of your nightmares, the power of your fear, and to finally break free from the sterile, meaningless nightmares that plague our own kind. As Xylar finished, the chamber door swung open, and a figure entered. It wasn't another Xylarthan, though. It was a human, a young woman with eyes that seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 nightmares. "Xylar," she said, her voice low and steady, "you've underestimated us again." She turned, and her gaze swept over the human delegation, a cold fire in her eyes. "We don't just turn nightmares into art. We are the nightmares, and we're not afraid to show you what they can do." A ripple of unease passed through the human representatives. They looked at each other, and a flicker of something dark, something almost pleasurable, passed between them. The Xylarthan, for the first time, looked truly terrified. The planet of nightmares had shown them, once again, that it was a place they didn't fully understand. It was a place where the line between fear and power was blurred, a place where nightmares were not just a source of inspiration, but a weapon in themselves, and they had just entered the game. The alien scout ship, its metallic hull scarred from the Earth's chaotic atmosphere, hovered over the last remaining human city. They had witnessed the horror, the wars, the environmental devastation, the sheer existential despair that pulsed through the planet's very core. Earth, they concluded, truly was the planet of nightmares. As the scout ship prepared to depart, its sensors picked up a faint, almost imperceptible signal. It was a rhythmic pulse, a steady beat, emanating from the depths of the city. Intrigued, the alien commander ordered a closer analysis. The signal was coming from a small, unassuming building, almost completely hidden amongst the crumbling infrastructure. He landed the ship on the roof, his crew cautiously approaching the building. As they entered, they found a room filled with people, young and old, gathered around a single flickering candle. They weren't armed, they weren't angry, they weren't afraid. They were singing. The song, simple yet profound, spoke of hope, of resilience, of a future yet to be written. The alien crew, accustomed to the harsh realities of their own world, were stunned. They had come to witness the death throes of a civilization, but instead, they found a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. As the song ended, the aliens, their advanced technology seemingly insignificant in the face of such raw human emotion, exchanged knowing glances. This wasn't a planet of nightmares, they realized. It was a planet of paradoxes. A planet where darkness and light, despair and hope, existed in a fragile balance. The alien commander turned to his crew, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "Perhaps," he said, his voice a whisper, "we have been too quick to judge. Perhaps this planet, with all its flaws, holds a secret we haven't yet learned." As they departed, leaving behind the city bathed in the pale glow of the single candle, the alien ship received a final transmission. It wasn't a distress call, it wasn't a warning, it was a melody, a song of hope carried across the vast emptiness of space, a message that would travel far beyond the boundaries of the planet of nightmares, echoing in the silent halls of the galaxy. The transmission ended with a final, unexpected note. It wasn't a human voice. It was the sound of a laugh that echoed not just with hope, but with the knowledge that the story of Earth was far from over. It was a laugh that said, "You haven't seen the best of us yet." The Xylarth had come for answers, driven by the chilling whispers of the planet of nightmares. They found not alien technology, but a human one, a terrifying weapon that could obliterate entire galaxies, nestled within the heart of Earth's most destructive force, humanity. It was the human capacity for self-destruction, the constant threat of war, the insatiable hunger for power and control. They saw the scars of history, the broken promises, the cruel indifference to suffering, and the horrifying potential for destruction. They saw, in essence, the nightmares that lived within the heart of humankind. But as the Xylarth prepared to return home, their scanners detected a faint flicker, an anomaly in the very fabric of their technology. It was a signal, a whisper, coming from the depths of human history. A forgotten story of kindness, a single act of selfless love, a moment of courage that shone like a beacon in the darkness. It was a story that challenged their assumptions, a whisper of hope in a sea of despair. It was the story of a child who, faced with the horrors of war, found the strength to protect a stranger, defying the very nature of the world he knew. The Xylarth stood speechless, their advanced technology reduced to silence by the sheer power of this simple act. They realized the planet of nightmares wasn't just a place of horror. It was also a place of resilience, a place where even in the darkest moments, the spark of humanity, of love and compassion, could still flicker. And as they turned their ships towards the vast expanse of space, they carried with them not fear, but a newfound respect for the planet they had come to judge, and a glimmer of hope for the future of both their species. They had come to conquer, but they left with a lesson, and as the last Xylarth ship disappeared into the star-strewn abyss, a young human child, oblivious to the alien encounter, played amongst the ruins of a war-torn city, a single dandelion seed clutched in his hand. He didn't know what it meant, this tiny seed, but it held within it the promise of something new, something hopeful, something that could bloom even in the face of the darkness. It was the spark of a new beginning, a new era, a new chapter in the story of the planet of nightmares. The alien vessel, the Dreamcatcher, hung suspended in Earth's orbit, its shimmering hull reflecting the pale light of a crescent moon. Inside, Commander Xylar, his 6 eyes narrowed, stared at the flickering holographic display. He was a seasoned explorer, hardened by years of traversing the cosmos, but even he was unsettled by the data. "It's unsettling," Xylar admitted, his voice echoing in the sterile command center. "The nightmares are not biological creatures, they're constructs. Energy signatures indicate they're manifestations of pure fear, born from the collective subconscious of this planet's inhabitants." The crew, a mix of beings from across the galaxy, murmured their agreement. This was a discovery unlike any they'd encountered. The Earth, a vibrant, teeming planet with stunning landscapes and diverse life, was also home to an unseen, insidious entity. "The creatures are driven by negativity," announced Ayla, the ship's bioengineer, her iridescent wings fluttering. "They feed on fear, despair, and hatred. It's a vicious cycle, as their presence amplifies these emotions, leading to more nightmares." "Then we must sever this cycle," declared Xylar, his voice resolute. "But how? We cannot simply eradicate the nightmares. They're too integrated into the planet's energy field. They are a symptom, not the disease." A wave of silence followed his proclamation. The crew, brilliant minds all, pondered the conundrum. Finally, Kale, the ship's historian, spoke. "Our records speak of a species called humans, the dominant inhabitants of this planet. They have a unique capacity for empathy and compassion, yet also possess a darker side, prone to conflict and self-destruction. Perhaps the key lies in influencing their own nature." Xylar nodded slowly. "We cannot impose our solutions on them. Instead, we must guide them, encourage them to confront their fears, to embrace their better angels." The Dreamcatcher descended, its presence a beacon in the night sky. It didn't attack, it didn't interfere directly. It simply emitted a harmonious frequency, a soothing wave of energy that washed over the Earth, a silent message of hope. The nightmares began to flicker, their forms growing less defined. The collective fear of the planet, under the gentle influence of the Dreamcatcher, started to dissipate. Across the globe, people awoke from their nightmares, their fear replaced with a newfound sense of peace. They looked to the night sky, the shimmering ship a symbol of hope, and began to understand their own power. As the Dreamcatcher departed, leaving the Earth to its own devices, it carried with it a message of hope. The planet of nightmares was no longer a place of terror, but a world on the cusp of a new dawn, a world where its inhabitants, guided by empathy and compassion, were finally beginning to conquer their inner demons. And as the alien crew looked back at the receding blue and green sphere, they knew they had not just discovered a planet of nightmares, but a planet that, through its own struggles, was learning to become a world of dreams. The alien ambassador, Xylar, stared at the Earth through the viewport, his iridescent scales shimmering under the blue light of their ship. He'd heard the tales, the whispers of the planet of nightmares. Now, he understood. He'd witnessed the horrors, the self-inflicted wounds, the insatiable hunger for destruction, the seemingly endless cycle of conflict. But he'd also seen the flicker of hope, the fragile beauty of human connection, the unyielding spirit of resilience. Xylar cleared his throat, his voice resonating through the ship's communication system. "We understand now," he said, his words carefully translated into Earth's complex language. "Your history is filled with darkness, but your potential is immeasurable. You have the capacity for both terrible destruction and profound beauty." The Earth Council, a diverse group of human leaders, watched Xylar intently. They had been preparing for war, for a final showdown against these enigmatic beings who had arrived with such ominous purpose. Now, hope blossomed in their hearts. "We have much to learn from you," Xylar continued. "Your scientific advancements are astounding. Your art is breathtaking. Your capacity for love is boundless. But you must learn to control the nightmares within, to harness your potential for good." The council members exchanged wary glances, then nodded. They had heard enough. They had learned enough. Earth had indeed become a planet of nightmares, but not because of the aliens. It was their own doing. Their self-destructive tendencies, their capacity for cruelty, their blind pursuit of power, these were the nightmares they had created. "We are ready to learn," said the council's representative, a woman with a face etched with the trials of history. "We are ready to change." The aliens, with their advanced technology and understanding of the universe, offered their knowledge. They shared their wisdom, their insights into peace, and the ways to harness the energy of the universe for good. They helped humans to heal the planet, to build a future where nightmares were a thing of the past. Years later, Earth was no longer the planet of nightmares. It was a beacon of hope, a testament to the power of cooperation, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when it chose to embrace its potential for good. The alien visitors, now familiar faces, watched from afar, content that their journey had not been in vain. The planet of nightmares had become the planet of hope, a testament to the transformative power of learning from mistakes. The alien scientists, their skin shimmering with bioluminescence, looked upon the Earth with renewed understanding. They had witnessed a nightmare unfolding, not one of physical horrors, but of emotional and psychological torment. They saw the human hunger for power, the relentless pursuit of profit, the indifference to the suffering of others. They understood now why Earth was dubbed the planet of nightmares. But then, something unexpected happened. A young human girl, her eyes full of a fierce, unwavering determination, walked towards the alien spaceship. The scientists, their advanced technology capable of detecting every emotion, were surprised. They felt no fear in the girl, only a deep and unwavering hope. She spoke, her voice trembling slightly, but resolute. "You came here seeking answers. You've seen our darkest side, but you haven't seen our best." She spoke of the human capacity for love, for empathy, for selflessness. She told of artists who created beauty from pain, of scientists who sought solutions to suffering, of ordinary people who stood up against injustice. She spoke of the countless acts of kindness, large and small, that echoed throughout human history. The alien scientists listened, their faces shifting from confusion to curiosity, then to awe. They had never encountered a species capable of such profound contradictions. The girl finished, her eyes now shining with tears, but also with hope. "We are not perfect," she said, "but we are capable of change. We are learning, growing, striving for a better future. We are not just the planet of nightmares. We are also the planet of hope." The aliens, their own understanding of the universe shaken, looked at each other. They had come to Earth expecting monsters, but they found something else, something more complex, more fascinating, something worthy of understanding, worthy of respect. They left Earth, not with fear, but with a sense of wonder. They had learned a valuable lesson, that even in the deepest darkness, the flicker of hope can always be found. As the alien ship vanished into the vastness of space, the young girl stood alone, her heart heavy with the weight of the world, but also with the glimmer of a future that, for the first time, seemed filled with possibility. The planet of nightmare, perhaps, could become something more, something better. It was, after all, a planet of hope, a planet of change. And that hope, like a tiny seed in the fertile soil of Earth, had the potential to blossom into something beautiful, something new. The Xylorians, their bodies shimmering with bioluminescence, stared at the desolate landscape before them. The once vibrant Earth, a lush tapestry of life, now lay barren, scarred by the ravages of humanity's self-destruction. The air, once filled with the hum of industry, was now silent, choked by the remnants of a poisoned past. "It's horrifying," whispered Xylura, her voice laced with a mixture of pity and disgust. "Indeed," agreed Xylo, his eyes flickering across the shattered remnants of cities. They called themselves the dominant species, yet they were the architects of their own demise. Their mission had been simple: observe, learn, and report. But the truth they had uncovered was far more terrifying than any alien threat they had ever faced. The Xylorians, a race known for their scientific prowess and harmonious society, were horrified by the human capacity for self-destruction. "The irony," Xylo muttered, "is that they had everything they needed to thrive. They had the technology, the resources, the knowledge. Yet they chose greed, selfishness, and war." Xylora, her eyes focused on a single, twisted metal object protruding from the ground, spoke softly. "They destroyed their planet and themselves, all for a fleeting sense of power." The Xylorians, their hearts heavy with the weight of their discovery, knew what they had to do. They would take their knowledge back to their own world, a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked ambition. They would use it to safeguard their own species, to ensure that the mistakes of humanity would not be repeated. Their ship, a sleek, silver craft, hummed to life, its engines crackling with a power that could traverse the vastness of space. As they lifted off from the desolate surface of Earth, a single, poignant image imprinted itself in their collective memory. The inscription on a monument that once stood proud in a once bustling city, the planet of nightmares. The Xylorians returned home, forever changed by their encounter. Their report, a testament to humanity's self-destruction, served as a chilling warning, a reminder that the pursuit of power, unchecked by wisdom and compassion, could lead to the ultimate nightmare, the extinction of a species. The story of the Earth, the planet of nightmares, became a cautionary tale, a cosmic beacon warning other civilizations of the dangers of unchecked ambition. Though humanity was gone, their legacy lived on, a stark reminder of the fragility of life and the necessity of wisdom in the face of power. The Xylorian, forever mindful of the lessons learned, vowed to use their knowledge to create a future where the nightmares of Earth would never be repeated. The alien ship, the Xylar, hovered silently over a desolate wasteland, the once vibrant Earth now a scorched husk. Captain Xylo, his antennae drooping in defeat, stared at the ravaged landscape. He had seen many planets, some beautiful, some hostile, but none as twisted as this. "It's as if the planet fought back," murmured Cora, the ship's navigator. Xylo nodded, the grim truth resonating in his gut. They had come to Earth, a planet known for its vibrant ecosystems, its varied life forms, and, according to their records, its nightmarish creatures. They had come to investigate, to understand what had driven this once thriving world into such desolation. They had found not monstrous beasts, but a planet that had turned its own fears into weapons. The Xylarians had discovered the horrifying truth. The nightmares weren't creatures, but Earth's own bio-engineered defense system. When faced with an existential threat, the planet's consciousness, a web of interconnected neural networks, had evolved a terrifying counterattack. The nightmares, they learned, were manifestations of Earth's collective fear, grotesque, monstrous entities fueled by the very terror they evoked. They had risen from the depths of the planet's core, driven by the fear of the Xylarians, and had turned their own world into a hostile wasteland. The Xylarians, who prided themselves on logic and reason, were horrified by the sheer power of fear, the force that could extinguish entire worlds. They had come seeking knowledge, but they left with a chilling lesson. "We must tell the others," Xylar said finally, his voice heavy. "Tell them what we have learned, and warn them of the potential within every world. The power of fear can be devastating." As the Xylar soared into the black void, leaving Earth to its chilling fate, Xylar knew their journey was not over. The universe was filled with countless worlds, each teeming with life, each harboring its own potential for fear, and it was their responsibility to ensure that fear remained a whisper, not a scream, that echoes across the cosmos. The Xylarians had come to Earth seeking knowledge, but they left with a heavy burden, a chilling awareness of the terrifying potential within every world, a fear that would forever color their understanding of the universe. Earth, the planet of nightmares, had left an indelible mark on their souls, a reminder of the terrifying power of fear. And so, the Xylarians continued their journey, their exploration of the universe forever tinged with the chilling echoes of a world that had fought back with the very essence of its fear.